stand in the midst of Coorg and lazily look around, you would feel that God took time off to sculpt the area. It is picture perfect. The trees on the slopes, the thick forests, the rich green paddy fields, the shimmering blue skies and the chirping bird. Draped over the slopes of the Western Ghats, it has dark green coffee plantations amid different types of forests and a variety of vegetation all around. The forests are dense and so support wildlife and a rich biodiversity. No wonder tourists call it the Scotland of India.
People from outside Coorg or Kodagu can come and see what a marvelous place this is.
Coorg is spread over 4,000 square kilometers, making it one of the smallest districts in Karnataka. It was earlier called Kodagu but was anglicized to Coorg after the British annexed it in 1834. Coorg became a melting pot of many communities living in harmony, flourishing in a rich heritage.
We're living in times where change is happening very rapidly. So it is important to keep on reminding ourselves that this is what we have by way of a heritage. This is how it is important, not merely as a, homage to nostalgia or anything like that, but because our very survival and our sustainable development as a society depends on capturing the essential important points of this heritage and not preserving them as a museum or anything, but seeing what lessons we have to learn from them in today's context and in the context of the future as we can foresee it.
On the face of it, Coorg may seem to be a very rich, fertile land. The greenery is quite misleading. The ecosystem there is very fragile. The topsoil is very thin, and only because it is rich in humus, it supports so much vegetation. Torrential rain often does a lot of damage in areas where plant roots are not there to hold the topsoil.
Most of the species, all fauna and flora, genetically coded for this type of ecological stresses called dry and wet season. And this is something, which we are the owners of this resource. Because today, because of the climatic change in the world, many species may suffer and may disappear. In that situation, this gene, if you just take it and transplant there, it can withstand that sort of a stress, drought, climatic change. So, we should preserve these areas at any cost. And the value of it is something, it's very difficult to assess. If we lose, we are going to lose.
Many endemic species of trees have already vanished. Exotics like the acacia and the silver oak have replaced them in many places. Decades ago, Coorg had some of the richest forests in India, but indiscriminate felling of trees for firewood and to grow rich cash crops like coffee and ginger have caused a lot of damage in the recent years.
Two-dimensional aspect of sustainability, the temporal dimension and the spatial dimension. When you do something and affect somebody else, as against doing something and affecting yourself or your inheritors over time.
There is an abundance of water in Coorg as the district receives very high rainfall and is also the birthplace of the Kaveri, which is called the Ganges of the South. Today, in many places, including the district headquarters Madikeri, there is acute shortage of water. Coorg still has some thick forests as most of the district is forested, but it is under severe threat. Rich in biodiversity, Coorg has a combination of evergreen and deciduous forests supporting various life forms and a vast storehouse of medicinal plants. This is especially evident in the reserved forest areas like the Nagarholi National Park, a Project Tiger location, and the 3 state sanctuaries besides the private forests and the sacred groves in the villages. Villagers are adept at using the vast knowledge of using plants to cure various ailments. But down the years, neglect and careless intervention by humans has taken its toll. Coorg was never known for industry, although some coffee curing works and some cottage industries do exist. Cultivation was the only major economic activity. But as the air was so fresh and the surroundings so beautiful and peaceful, tourists too started to come streaming in. Soon, there were new problems, like disposal of garbage. Then there was also a rush at the Talakaveri, the birthplace of the Kaveri, a major pilgrimage center. It was not just tourists who were to blame. Changing lifestyles in the countryside threw up new problems like polythene and plastic disposal that today plagues every urban jungle. Coorg was losing its virgin quality.
Let me put to you the Coorg problem in the total national context, because Coorg is a part of India. What happens in the rest of India affects inevitably what happens here.
Kaveri is no more the healthy, vibrant river it was. The coffee pulping units pollute the river and its tributaries. Besides, the fertilizers and the pesticides which run off agricultural fields and coffee plantations also contribute to its pollution and degradation. Even the groundwater table has been affected. And so has the famous Mahasir fish been affected, which used to earlier breed in large numbers in the otherwise clear river. The Center for Environment Education, popularly known as CEE, saw this as a challenge. When they first visited Coorg to draw out strategies to repair the damage, the situation seemed far too complicated. Mr. P.M. Ayana, a coffee planter and the honorary wildlife warden in Coorg, was the first activist they met. A group of young tourists who were trying to flee after littering the area were being stopped by him and were being made to take back the litter with them. He, as many others like Air Marshal Cariappa, felt that there was a general depression and great unhappiness that their culture was being misinterpreted.
I made some suggestions. This was I can't say an expedition, it was an excursion that had been organized by Mr. Ayana, wherein these 18 college kids had been taken out. And I'm sure they have learned a great deal and have gone back that much the wiser from all that did. And I do think that if we had more people like him, we would indeed, Kodagu would be a much cleaner district than what it is in the south.
This was giving rise to widespread anger and frustration, which fueled the already existing upsurge of movements demanding a separate state. CE held hands with Ayana to start sowing the seeds of change. He and CE motivated school students and the community in Coorg to understand their district better and do something to make others understand it and respect it as well. They decided to start with making young people care for their district and their environment. Some of these included conducting cleanup campaigns in Talakaveri and Bhagamandla and many other tourist and pilgrim spots, construction of check dams in areas where the water runoff was high, and making fire lines near forests for preventing spreading of spontaneous forest fires in summers, so that those who came to Coorg saw the residents' efforts, appreciated it, and respected their natural and cultural heritage. The Clean Up Kodagu campaign, under the leadership of the Deputy Commissioner and other officials, decided to start by collecting waste from their houses and bringing the dry garbage that included recyclable materials and plastics from home every day to their respective schools. These would be sold every week, and the money generated would be used to finance eco-clubs that the students set up for the conservation of Coorg.
I started this with a intention of educating our grassroots level. Now I think each of the people who are living in this district have to take it as a war footing, and they all should get involved in this program and see that our district is clean. At the same time, the ecosystem is maintained and the younger generation is educated on this line.
The eco-clubs used to undertake a host of activities like collecting plastic waste, planting trees, and organizing excursions to spread awareness on the dangers of a degraded environment. Going beyond theory worked wonders. Through a seminar called Kodagu, a model for sustainable development, involving all citizens of Coorg and resource persons from several well-known institutions in the country, CEE drew up an alternative development plan for Coorg. The idea was to preserve biodiversity, increase awareness, introduce solid waste management, and create income generation activity. The aim was to bring in sustainable development that would conserve the natural pristine quality of Coorg and yet fulfill the aspirations of the community as being a progressive and a modern one. CEE set up the Coorg Resource Center in 1995 on the highway near Nilkoli village in Virajpet to further this dream. It organized training programs to build the villagers' capacities and learn about various intervention strategies to deal with the complex environmental problems. They were familiarized with vermiculture, where manure was created from biodegradable waste. They were encouraged to grow biomanure plants like azolla to avoid harmful chemical fertilizers.
Here you see a compost pit. Every week the segregated vegetable waste from the market is brought here and dumped into this pit, and we mix cow dung, neem cake, coconut pith and other estate waste into this pit and make it into an organic manure. And my estate 50% or up to 70% I can say is on organic now for the last 4 years. And you can also see the difference in growth of the plants and the pepper vines. Here usually during summer, during October, that is post monsoon, we get this wilt for our pepper vines. The blocks where I have used this organic manure has very small attack of wilt.
To overcome the shortage of water, rainwater harvesting was introduced in schools, colleges and many public buildings like Kalyana Mandaps. Fuel wood used to light up kitchen stoves was not only denuding forests in remote villages, but the smoke from it led to indoor pollution and health hazards. Therefore, smokeless stoves and biogas plants were introduced for cooking, lighting and heating in many remote villages, especially those in close proximity to the reserved forests and sanctuaries.
Cooking itself becomes a very unhealthy practice. Smoke inhaled, for example, in a typical rural household is almost equivalent to the smoke of 400 cigarettes per day. So you're talking about a high degree of respiratory diseases also caused.
ಪಾತ್ರೆ ಮಸಿ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಹೊಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ. ಈಗ ಏನು ತೊಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸುಮಾರು ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಪೈಪ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡಿಸಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಅವರು ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾವ್ರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ರೆಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನೂ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ದಿವಸ ಕರೆಸಿ ಹಾಕಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಒಪ್ಕೊಂಡವ್ರೆ. ಆಯಿತು, ಇನ್ನು ಅವರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ ಬಂದಾಗ. ಇನ್ನು ಇಷ್ಟೇ ಮಾತು ನಮ್ಮದು. ಇನ್ನು ಪೆಮ್ಮಯ್ಯನವರು ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ಮಾಡಲಿ ದೇವರು ಅಂತ ಬೇಡ್ಕೊತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಅದು ಖರ್ಚು ಉಳಿತಾಯ.
Activities like making of newspaper bags as alternatives to plastic carry bags also helped generate employment and helped in cleaning up tourist and pilgrim destinations in the district. As poly bags strewn all around was becoming a major problem, many women were taught how to recycle them by weaving them on hand looms to make durable bags, mats and other articles out of it. A handmade paper unit to recycle waste paper and rags in the district was also set up as part of the eco-friendly recycling units CRU program of CEE, wherein non-polluting and eco-friendly methods combined with simple machinery are used for recycling paper, plastic and other material. The handmade paper thus made is used to make many items like files, pads, bags, cards and also to fabricate it to make pencil stands, telephone slip boxes, diaries and even masks. These products made at the Nemiraj Memorial Demonstration Unit in Virajpet target not only the outsiders and tourists but also those living in the district and spread the message of a clean and green Kodagu. Disposal of solid waste from towns and cities is always a problem. To create awareness about the dangers of careless waste disposal, meetings and street plays have been organized and citizens have been encouraged to segregate their waste at source into biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste and convert the biodegradable into compost and manure using various techniques of aerobic and vermicomposting. It has helped. People have started seeing the sense of segregating and the proper disposal of waste and also the importance of reducing the use of plastic carry bags. Coorg has today become much cleaner and efforts are being made to involve the panchayats and Zilla Parishads so that they can institute bans in the towns and municipalities and thus help the citizens and tourists towards cleanliness and conservation. Encouraged by the results of its interventions, CEE has constructed the Kodagu Heritage Interpretation Center in the district headquarters, Madikeri, and is now in the process of putting suitable exhibits in it for showcasing Coorg's natural and cultural heritage.
The CEE, like the name goes, environment education, their work in Kodagu is commendable. I am particularly referring to the waste management unit opened in Virajpet. In the ecotourism also they are doing a lot of work, because the tourism is one thing we cannot stop. Both in the center as well as the state government is supporting the tourism. In order to control, particularly in Coorg, some sort of organization has to come in and control with a lot of rules and regulations. Otherwise, it will be like Ooty and Kodagu. We certainly do not want this area to become like that, and we are expecting CE to take a lead role in this, and I'm sure their work will be appreciated in the long run from the people of Kodagu.
Coorg attracts tourists from all over India with its beautiful, untouched, natural bounty. Therefore, this center will also house the Geographic Information System (GIS) of Coorg, which has been painstakingly prepared from all the village maps of the district, which have been digitized. As the ecosystem in Coorg is fragile, CE has been encouraging ecotourism and has formed many partnerships with homestay owners and adventure tourism groups to make the visit to Coorg a memorable one. The idea was not only to keep the area clean and green, but also pave ways for a better income generation through methods which are non-destructive but sustainable. Furthermore, commercial five-star hotels in the area would not be economically or environmentally sustainable. People, especially those who had reasonably medium-sized coffee plantations, are encouraged to convert some whole homes and also build some new cottages and offer them as homestays to tourists who could stay for a few days and enjoy the local hospitality, food, and come to know the culture of Coorg through their hosts. Youth who were eco-volunteers for monitoring the school programs in the eco-clubs are now being trained as eco-guides to take care of tourists in their homestays and guide them to nearby places of cultural and natural interest. It was an idea that worked since tourists loved the simplicity that went with it, and they enjoyed the purity of an unassuming lifestyle in the midst of such eloquent beauty. It also generated some additional income for the people in villages who often generally worked as laborers in the coffee plantations but had no income during times when there was no work in the plantations or fields. Both the tourists and the villagers were happy. Wayside exhibits were set up by CEE in many tourist and pilgrimage destinations to catch the imagination of the tourist and enamor them with interesting facts. The waysides tell the tourists about the place and the need to conserve it, along with some interesting facts on the specifics, like a story or a legend about the location or a species that was unique to Coorg. The tourism department is also making efforts and following in the same trend by funding NGOs, including CEE, to develop tourist destinations in an environmentally friendly manner. More areas are now moving in that direction and benefiting from such projects. CEE has also introduced community awareness programs on non-renewable sources that should not be carelessly exploited. Instead of burning coal and wood, they were encouraged to use biogas for cooking and lighting. Solar energy has gained great popularity and is increasingly preferred to other forms of energy for home lighting, rural electrification, etc. Biogas and microhydel projects are also being tried in many parts of Coorg for localized generation of energy for cooking, lighting, and even for running tiny industrial units like paper recycling.
ಸಿ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಒಂದು 60% ಯಶಸ್ವಿ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಆನಂತರ ನಾವು ಆಲ್ಟರ್ನೇಟಿವ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಸಮಗ್ರ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಇಂಧನ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಸ್ತ್ರವಲಯಗಳನ್ನ ನಿರ್ಮಿಸ್ತಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಈ ಬಲ್ಯಮಂಡೂರು ಗ್ರಾಮ ಪಂಚಾಯತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಮಾರು 34 ಅಸ್ತ್ರವಲಯಗಳನ್ನ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರ ಸಹಕಾರ ಹಾಗೂ ಜಿಲ್ಲಾ ಪಂಚಾಯತ್ ಸಹಕಾರ ತುಂಬ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ನಂತರ ಪ್ರಿಯಾಗ್ನಿ ಸ್ಟವ್ಗಳು, ಇದು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಸೌದೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಹೊಗೆ ಬರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಇದನ್ನು ವಿರಾಜಪೇಟೆ ತಾಲೂಕಿನ ಹಲವಾರು ಗ್ರಾಮಗಳ ಸದಸ್ಯರುಗಳಿಗೆ ವಿತರಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಇದರಲ್ಲೂ ಜನರ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ತುಂಬ ಇದೆ. ಜನರು ಈ ಸ್ಟವ್ಗಾಗಿ 50 ರೂಪಾಯಿಯನ್ನು ನಮಗೆ ನೀಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಪರಿಸರ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಕೇಂದ್ರದಿಂದ 22 ರೂಪಾಯಿಯ ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿಯನ್ನು ನೀಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಯೋಗ್ಯಾಸ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಅವರೇಗೊಂದ ಗ್ರಾಮದಲ್ಲಿ 6 ಬಯೋಗ್ಯಾಸ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಹಾಗೂ ತಟ್ಟಳ್ಳಿ ಗ್ರಾಮದಲ್ಲಿ 4 ಬಯೋಗ್ಯಾಸನ್ನು ಕಟ್ಟಿಸಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರು ನಮಗೆ 3,700 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಜಿಲ್ಲಾ ಪಂಚಾಯತ್ 5,800 ಹಾಗೂ ಪರಿಸರ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಕೇಂದ್ರದಿಂದ 2,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಉಳಿದ ಕೆಲಸಗಳನ್ನು ಆ ಬೆನಿಫಿಷರಿ ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಫಲಾನುಭವಿಯೇ ಮಾಡಿ ಮುಗಿಸಿದ್ದಾನೆ.
It was important to sustain Coorg's wealth of medicinal plants. Students and self-help groups of mainly women from various villages are encouraged to grow medicinal plants in their gardens, backyards, and even raise nursery plants for sale and distribution. Documentation of these plants ensured that the traditional knowledge does not die and people have easy access to medical care and simple remedies that they can adopt and practice.
One of the reasons why many people have given up practicing local medicine is that it intrudes into a lot of their time. Particularly the Kodagus, when they take up treatment of a patient, they do it as if it's an act of worship. So they are very keen that the patient should take his medicines regularly and also follow strict diet restrictions. For this reason, some of them would like to keep the patient in their own homes until the treatment is over. Now this intrudes a great deal into their time which would otherwise have been spent in the practice of agriculture, because most of them are primarily agriculturists. So if you want them to practice medicine, then you must give them some alternative by way of monetary support to get labor for their work, or some alternative assistance to help in the preparation of their medicines and so on. And also you must educate the people to understand that it is not necessary to go to the hospital for all their ailments, that there are many forms of treatment available locally which they could take advantage of.
Traditionally, there were over 1,000 areas among the forests, coffee plantations and paddy fields of Coorg that were earmarked as sacred groves. It has a religious connotation as well as a conservational one, since it has a deity that is worshipped once every year, but the year round nothing is removed from these sacred groves. The villagers worship the grove and naturally protect it by not removing anything from it and visiting it only once every year, especially during the festivals. During these times, people dance to the accompanying music, and special dancers were also invited from Kerala and other districts of Karnataka to perform the tere, and there were many rituals which were performed alongside. The rich biodiversity, along with the medicinal plants amongst them, were thereby conserved. The Forestry College, Ponambit and CE are now involved in documenting each grove in Coorg so that villagers have all the information they want and can ensure its protection. As the awareness regarding preserving the sanctity of the sacred groves picks up momentum, those who had encroached on these sacred groves are now returning the land to the villages through the efforts of the Federation of Sacred Grove Associations in the district, which has been formed subsequent to a widespread movement in the district to towards conserving these pristine sacred groves.
Other areas should be identified to make it a wider area, a bigger area, to serve this purpose of maintaining the biodiversity. The biodiversity of the Coorg, if you take, it varies rapidly because of the rainfall variation, temperature, altitude, latitude, all these things, soil type. So the distribution pattern is quite far apart of the species. 90% of the species are cross-pollinated. If they don't have a viable cluster of the species, then they don't perform the required function of producing the viable seeds. So like that, there is a chain negative manifestation will be set in by maintaining a small unit area in a tropical country, because the diversity is very high. Then by maintaining the nature reserve of this kind, of a viable area of about 100 or 200 acres, will be more meaningful, because at least in 100 acres there will be a viable population to perform this unique function of cross-pollination.
Efforts of the Centre for Environment Education and its funding agency, the Royal Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, NORAD, along with other NGOs like Coorg Wildlife Society, Nirmala Kodagu, Coorg Foundation, and many others, have helped a great deal in the turnaround at Coorg. There are many offshoots and spillovers from this project, like those of the efforts by youth associations to start an ambulance service in the district, women's associations working on many social and environmental issues, and even the district administration using its agricultural and other extension services to popularize many of their schemes and bring back important agri-horticultural income generation products like growing fruit trees, reviving honeybee breeding, tangerine and other citrus fruit cultivation, mushrooms cultivation, anthurium and orchids cultivation, and preservation of these products while doing value addition and marketing. The Education Department too has adopted the Eco Club system introduced by CEE in all its 500-odd educational institutions, and has adopted the manual prepared by CEE for conducting significant number of activities in all of them each year and monitoring them through their district and block education offices.
Kodagu Model Forest Trust is a new organization started by the like-minded people in Kodagu for protecting the biodiversity reach of this place. This part of the Western Ghats, which is one of the 8 hotspots in the world. Now, various organizations, including CE, are working towards it, but we thought we would all join together and protect this area for future benefit. CEE, we are making use of their expertise in educating the people as well as in their expertise on eco-tourism.
The formation of the Kodagu Model Forest Trust, which is endeavoring to conserve the entire district of Coorg for the betterment of its people, and the Save Kaveri movement are very significant developments that have happened this year and point towards the state's effort at conservation of this unique and important district.
Coorg is perhaps unique in India in the effort that has gone in to really protecting this really wonderful area and its cultural diversity through the efforts of local people, through the community. Much of the land in Coorg is in fact owned by people there, and this is where most of the conservation activity happens. Now often it is asked whether conservation and development can take place together, and here is a wonderful example where coffee plantation takes place, but it does so in a way in which it also protects the environment. People are planting trees there. People are conscious about protecting forests. There is a very old tradition of sacred groves in Coorg. Most of these are again in village or community lands. They are conscious about some of the new developments also. With sea, there has been work on waste management because of tourism, because of new developments. We are looking at alternatives for energy in such an area. And as we look at the development plan, a sustainable development plan for Coorg, ecotourism opens up as a possibility. There is a interest in involving local communities in getting having a stake in tourism. And I think this is something which we will see in future. So I think Coorg is a very, very important area which will have leadership, which will show directions for the future, which I think can be used in several places in India and in fact elsewhere.
However, a lot remains to be done, and a new effort is being started almost every day these days. A beginning has been made, and the people in Coorg are seeing a new dawn and a new hope for a better life that retains the unique culture and heritage of Coorg, like the heady scents of its coffee blossoms and pepper strings, but also electrifies their dreams like the microhydel project which gurgles in a tiny waterfall in a distant village.